Well, I'm here at the shop in Las Vegas, and people like to stop by and visit sometimes. Sometimes I get visitors, and sometimes it's Kevin Pike.
Hi, Bob. Good to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Well, Kevin is the guy that built the original Delorean Time Machine for Back to the Future. You had a company called Filmtrix.
We did. Filmtrix
In LA.
Incorporated, North Hollywood. We had a crew of about 20 guys, and after 10 weeks, we made 3 of the cars.
That's right. So I've known you, gosh darn, almost 20 years now.
Scary.
Getting close to that. And so I was just a wee little boy in 1984 when you guys were building the car.
35 years old.
That's right. So we've talked about it in other videos. You had like 10 guys, 10 weeks or something like that.
Close, 20 guys for about 10 weeks.
Yeah.
We built the A car, then the B car, then we had to go back and add the interior to the B car. And of course, the C car was for process photography, which we chopped up as.
Did you ever think that like 40 years later there'd be hundreds of these?
There's over 200 replicas made worldwide.
Is there
based on our original work.
I don't know if there's 200, but
there is.
Getting close.
There is.
Because I know I've done 47 of them.
But you got to have Europe involved too, because they've
true.
got some great cars over there too.
So you have people like me who build them full time, then you have fans that just build them on their own. Well, you travel the world and you meet fans all the time because you not only talk about Back to the Future, but Jaws, some of the
Close Encounters, Jedi.
I like Last Starfighter.
Last Starfighter was my first big film. It was a big, tough project, but I got through it, and that started me on my roll.
There you go.
Yep.
So anyway, you happen to be in Vegas, just come to visit. He visits all the time.
Couldn't come without seeing Bob.
Of course. And we're just going to walk around and we'll talk about some of his memories from Back to the Future, filming and making the cars, probably things that we haven't talked about before, because you mentioned some things to me I wanted to capture. So we'll walk around the car and we'll take a look.
So it's funny how my memory is so positive on some things, and some other times I'm not so sure because, well, I was busy doing the shooting too. But some of the things that I always look for are the color of the junction boxes.
There's been a lot of controversy over
those. If they get too blue, they look different than what I can remember.
All right, now look on camera. Does that look blue or gray to you?
Well, it's up for discussion, but
I've tried to find a color that is the most neutral, bluish, grayish color that looks like the photos.
Let's tell the story.
Okay.
When we originally painted the car, it was painted by Lyle Dickey. We had a set painter that worked with us in the shop from the Universal Local of the paint shop, and he was with us full time for everything we had to do. And he made these metallic blue, just like a metallic blue car finish. Mm-hmm. And when you looked at the whole car, the whole thing that popped out was the metallic boxes, and they were dark color against the lighter stainless steel. And Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale came in and looked at it. Right away, those things drew so much attention that they said, we have to tone those down. We have to make them closer to.
Okay, well that makes sense to me because I have photos of them in that color.
And that I do too. And then they took them off, and he knocked them down, and he painted them a light gray with some blue in it, because they liked the blue, but not dark blue.
Well, that's what I feel this color is.
Okay, well, we're not.
You know, these are molded off of the A car. So the A car wooden boxes were sanded down, and then
they were poplar wood made by Dave Wishneck, piece by piece. This was one piece, this was one piece, this was one piece, all glued together, clamped together, and then they got painted, and then they got drilled with these plates on. The hard part is that when you want to change the color, to do it right, you got to take it all apart.
No,
and it's a job.
Made hundreds of them, so I.
Anyway, so
these were just stage plugs. These were lighting plugs, Mole
Richardson plugs, and once they became the connectors, it started out as the idea that when Doc Brown was going to plug in the connection for the lightning to hit the tower, that became, well, what can we use for a big connector that he can hold on to? And I looked down on the ground, and the electricians had plugged their lights into that kind of connector, and they got kicked out from time to time, and they'd make arcing noises, and everybody would spread away. And I said, why don't we just use one of those? And so we got one from the
electric. That's why these are hard to get, because these were banned by OSHA for electrocution of people. Then they added a third leg to it that was shielded. So these are hard to find because
you got to make them from scratch.
Yeah, that's what we do.
So I always look at the color of the lighting. As you know, we used white gas phosphorus tubing, 5/8 diameter, and we made a jig with 9 wire of the sizes, and we made them in pieces. This is a different design than this one because of the shape and the radius. And we sent them out to the neon shop, and they made several pieces for takes and damages. And we put them on chicken wire screens. We had a whole car hanging up in the shop where every time we needed a new one, we could go get and then put it on the car, which we had on the set. And we never really did have any big damage on the set, to my recollection. But when we put the car on the tours, they put it right outside the ticket gate. And everybody would step over the stanchions with a plastic chain link, and they would lean against this part right here to get their selfie taken. And then next thing you know, they'd break it, and we get a call from Universal. You know, S19 is out again, and it would cause a little short against the body, and they could feel the tingle. So we had to get right on it right away, and we'd go up there with a pickup truck and A-frame and these racks of chicken wire with all the lighting on it, take it out, put it back in, throw the switch, put the chain back up, say, okay, don't cross this line again. And the secret, what we did is Billy Lee, one of the best effects men in the business, said, why don't we just make these hard shore rubber? He figured out exactly what it had for density, and he said, this will be rigid enough and flexible enough to hold that for the whole show. And that's one of the secret weapons that we put on the car.
There was something else you were...
I always like to have some kind of texture on the oil leakage because Lyle Dickey added that too. A lot of people like to spray them black. I guess they got aged over time, and then to make them look nice, they ended up getting painted black.
I think my explanation for that is that people try to emulate the toys. They use a toy as a reference, like the Sunstar models or various toys or illustrations. And the toys, they're just black plastic, and the lights are blue because they didn't have white LEDs in the 80s and 90s. They didn't have RGB white LEDs. So you would buy a toy of the car, and it would come with blue bands and black vents, and people would emulate that on their replicas. So this is another controversy amongst the builders whether the bands should be blue or whether they should be white. I like to build the car as it appeared in real life before special effects were added, so it's done white before ILM puts its magic lightning on it.
I meant visual effects.
The visual effects.
We did the special effects.
Well,
one of the
that's what I
things,
mean to
one
say.
of the ideas was that when it went out hot, it came back cold.
Yeah.
And if you look at the time machine, Time After Time, that car goes out cold and comes back hot. It's funny where the ideas come from.
Yeah.
But on this car, one of the parts that goes through a lot of permutations is this handle. In the original, as soon as Christopher Lloyd touched something, he usually had a heavy hand, let's just say that, and it would break. And he slammed this down on the latch too quickly, and it broke that latch. So that got fastened in a much stronger mold and carved, hand filed out of aluminum.
Like the remote, he snapped the switch right off.
The first time he touched the go on the red flop switch on the side, left side with his thumb, snapped it right off. So now we had to wait to redo it.
Now, you and I both share this pet peeve when people refer to this as the Part 2 car. This is the Part 1 car.
I saw it in Part 1.
Yeah.
It was at the Michael J. Fox,
It was at the end of the movie. One of the best gags in the film.
Well, what I didn't understand was they put this on my desk. They said, we want you to make something that can grind up product and turn it into energy. And I said, well, it's going to run on coffee beans in the future. And then, well, this is just part of the design. And then this became the chamber where everything went into. And then Bob said, I want to be able to put cans of beer down there, banana peels, things like that. And then the prop master, Dangerous Bob Whidden, came up with these wonderful packs of Coors in foil that could fit in there. They're cute as heck. I wish I still had one. And they would go in there too. And so that was the original idea. The only thing that really changed from it was this. We modified this to be stronger for the actors.
This is all plastic and resin. I have one of these original metal enclosures that came out. It was like part of a Singer Libroscope hard drive array that was... It doesn't look like this when you find it in the wild, obviously. So I don't know where...
They're heavier.
Yeah, I don't know where one... I have a real one. I don't know... You guys obviously found it at Apex, laying on the ground or
No,
something?
it came from the surplus, the aircraft surplus part next door.
Oh, what, Norton's?
No, Air Components West.
Oh, okay.
But somewhere I got another one of these, and it came from San Diego.
Okay.
And they said there was something to do with the factory down there that had them. So that was the last time. I
have one that I keep in my archive. I mean, this car has, you know, pretty much all real stuff. I should have pulled it out where you could get to the other side, but you can kind of get to this side. I can push myself between the wall. We've talked about these green tubes. You said that they were just in a bucket. Or did Joe Factor have them, or
No,
they were at your shop?
It was Air Components West.
Okay.
And they were turnbuckles for rotors.
Yeah.
And there's 3 of them because I guess that's how many blades there were on that model of helicopter. And then when we had to make the B car, I was like, whoops, now we got to find other ones. So then we had to turn them out. And oftentimes you'll see the design of some of them have a different start before it starts to taper.
Our good friend Danny Buckin makes these for me.
There you go.
So he has these made at a metal shop, powder coated and welded. He's been providing them for me for a long time.
And if they're really trick, you'll have that little decal that you can read.
Oh yeah, there's a stamp. I haven't put the stamp on these ones.
Right.
My buddy Elliot, I think, has the stamp.
But it's funny how things pop out from my memory.
Like these are mufflers that go to an air compressor. These are just standard capacitors. These zero cans, I know these came from
Mike Fink brought those
Factor.
in.
Well, because Lukey had
he
tons of
ordered those from Zero.
Yeah, Zero
We
Halliburton
had
made
boxes of them. And I said, what are we going to do with these? He said, we're going to drill holes in them and put them all over. And when they got punched out of the mold, they had tabs on them to pop them out. And I said, well, don't cut those off. Leave the tabs on them, and you can screw right through them and put them on there. And that was a contribution that Mike.
See, those tabs were already cut off when I got these, so we just welded them to this plate.
That'll work.
This is a part that I don't think ever's been talked about. Nobody's ever found one. It's a Robinson gyroscope mount. This is a replica. I forget who made this particular one, but no one's ever found that. It's just a random thing that you guys must have found. I don't think you have a memory of that. This heat sink came off the back of a Hewlett-Packard piece of medical equipment, so we call it the medical heat sink. This is a replica. I have the original, and it's so rare I just don't want to put it on the car.
I'm sure it's a Apex surplus electronics piece.
Just like these silicone hoses, it's marked right on it.
Those came from...
I know that it goes to a Sikorsky helicopter. They're marked 1967. This one, I think, says 68 or 69 on it.
We had a salesman that would come and sell us hose because we used a lot of hose in our business, from water hose to hydraulic hose. And when he came in and he started seeing us build, he started supplying us with artifacts that he thought would look good. And sadly, he's passed on now, but he worked for a company that did nothing but supply hose to industrial.
We have these are oil separators. I have quite a number of these. These were pretty hard to find. They're from 1954. I bought out the company's new old stock. So as far as I know, I'm the only one that has these. So I have some of those. Nobody ever figured out what this thing is.
Yeah, I wish I had the
Bob
original.
calls it the tachyon generator. We used to call it the wormhole generator.
Well, I know that the original one has been taken and remolded, and
this is a mold from the A car.
The original one I've never seen again.
I don't know if the original one exists or
Sadly.
where it is. I don't know if the original one's on the A car.
Nope.
And we've never figured out what it does and what it goes to.
Right. Somebody knows. Well, this is sure a fine-looking replica, Bob. It's another nice job you've done. I love the fact that you took time to put air conditioning in there. I do love that.
That was one of my Vegas modifications.
And the fact that it's an automatic, I think, makes it easier to drive, especially with all the hardware that Michael J. Fox always complained about hurting himself on.
Well, that would have destroyed the whole plot twist of how he would accidentally hit this. So talk about the battery cleaner switch handle.
So we need some kind of device where Marty can jump in the car and accidentally turn the car off. So it has to be big enough so he could hit it and we can see that happening. So I said, well, let's go up to Pep Boys, which used to be right down the block from where my company was. And we walked down there, we started walking around, and I saw that black battery terminal cleaner on a piece of cardboard with the plastic over it. And I said, what about this? This would work. And we took it out and we said, it does. It works really well. And if you unscrewed those, on one side you have a brush, and the other side you have some kind of plug to help.
They ironically still sell them for like $5.
They should probably make $1 million because of the movie. But that was where that came from. And once we did it, it was fine. Just before we started to shoot, I got the call from Amblin. Steven wants the car on the back lot by Courthouse Square. Okay. When? Right now. okay, load it up, let's go. And we went up there, and he said he wants to go through everything on the car, so make sure everything works. So we got our wizard Bill Klinger, electronic supervisor, in there with his box, and everything was plugged in and ready to go. And Steven came in, I jumped in the seat. He came in and looked. Bob Zemeckis was right here over his shoulder. Steven knew the story inside and out, and he just went through a punch list in his mind. Okay, well, what happens when it goes 88? And we had the speedometer at that time made by the Universal print shop so that it did go up to 95.
We've modified the speedometer so that it says 95. Look at that.
And so then we added this 88 digital circuit on the dash so that it would be more clear to the audience. And then Bob Zemeckis said, we need something behind Marty so that we know when he's going faster to help build up when he leaves Griffith Park and heads towards the clock tower. So that came up with that idea, something that Bill built. We used to call it the Cascade or the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Now they call it the Sid or something like that. I don't know, but it was a cute toy, and I love it. It's one of the exciting parts of the car for me. Bill Klinger, that's all of his work right there.
Tell us about Bill Klinger. I'd like to know more about some of your guys.
Bill Klinger came to us on Jedi. George Lucas decided to take the model from Empire and said, why don't we make one 25 feet tall? So he hired Roy Arbogast, who brought me up to Lucasfilm, and we started building it from some vague blueprints, and it had guns on the side of the head. And Roy put out a call and said, we need somebody that can turn metal and make these round tubes for those guns on the side of the Jedi head. And they got Bill Klinger out of the theater.
Are you talking about the bipedal walking things with the...
I called it the Scout Walker. Some people called it ASTS or something like that.
Yeah.
But we always referred to it as the Scout Walker. And so they brought in Bill, who could turn metal, and he looked at the drawings and he said, Roy, we can just make this out of PVC tubing, and all I have to do is turn a piece of wood for the end piece on it. And Roy looked at him like he had found God. He really loved the guy.
Yeah.
And he's an unusual kind of quirky little guy, but I'm telling you, his hands are magic, and his brain is twice as smart as everybody else's, and he's responsible for all the electronics that you can see on this car.
Now, he's no longer around?
He's still with us.
Oh, he is?
He is. He still lives.
You gotta hook us up with him. I'd love to interview him.
He lives in Arkansas, up north on the border.
We got to talk to...
He makes organs. He makes hand grind organs for...
Oh, really?
For collectors.
That's amazing. So I definitely want to talk to him.
Yep, he's still with us. I was just saying, well, they want lights here. And then I said, well, that's going to be a little bit of work to run the wires down, and things have to go around like some kind of universal commutator. And Bill said, well, just put a battery in here. And he popped it off, and my jaw
9-volt battery.
So that was Bill's wizardry also.
That came out great.
That came out great. And everybody still asks, how did you guys do that?
I know. It's...
Right?
Is there anything in particular?
Mike Chaffee came in, and he added all the writing on there. That's all his.
Oh, he hand wrote that stuff.
Yeah, he was on touch with every detail. Well, you can't put it there, Mike, because it'll cause water to leak on the battery, or some part. He said, well, can we turn it sideways, or whatever it was? And his aestheticisms are hands-on in everything that you see here, too.
Well, speaking of Mike Chaffee, he worked on another one of my favorite shows. This thing over here, Knight Rider.
Worked on that one, too.
The car that I'm working on. This is an 88 GTA that has been converted to an 82.
I worked on the series for a few episodes when it was needed for whatever effects, but we also worked with John Pizer in the electronics room, because you never knew where you're going to work. Maybe we could go show them the dashboard and some of the electronics on that.
Sure. We'll go into my workshop. It's my dirty workshop. This is a custom version of the Season 1, Season 2 dash dual screen. So this has LCDs in it, obviously, instead of the tube TVs. And these are printed circuit boards with actual laser etched metal laser cut inlays, which I'm sure were very different from the way it was made in 1982.
We did styrene plastic and notched it out for most of it, but every now and then you got a different chore in the prop shop, as we called it back then. And you'd be in the fiberglass room, you'd be in the breakaway glass room, you'd be in the vacuform room, or you'd be out there doing woodwork on the benches. And every now and then you got to go in the electronics room. And I had some history from coming from Close Encounters. I learned a lot from a supervisor named Russ Hesse when we built the sign that sent the message to the spaceship in Close Encounters. And I would get an opportunity to work in the electronics room. And one day they sent me in there, and John Pizer, who was a really good electronics technician, was working on the dash, because the first year, the light that represented the voice of the talking car was pretty much an on and off kind of thing. It didn't have a lot of character. And then John designed a circuit that had a little more variance to it, a little more fluctuation. And I went in and was happy to help him. I said, "What do you need me to do?" And he said, "Just talk into the microphone." Well, I said, "I'm good at that." And so I talked into the microphone, and I gave the voice, and he modulated the pots on the back and dialed it in, give it the most kick. And that was a contribution that we made to the second year DeLorean, excuse me, kick
Trans
car,
Am, yeah.
kick car,
Knight Rider.
Knight Rider car.
Well, it changed from episode to episode. With the pilot episode, this was just a solid red
Yes,
flash.
yes.
Then it eventually moved into the multi-segmented
Right.
thing that we have now. And
Right.
when people talk about Knight Rider and screen accuracy, I say, well, when you say screen accuracy and Knight Rider, which
What year?
episode and scene are you referring to?
Right.
Because there would be, out of the 20 cars and all the different versions of the, I know that the dash itself that operated was on a stage set and not in the car.
They always have that. They always
Yeah.
have an insert. But oftentimes you want to see something moving with the actor in the car on the set when he gets out of the car, something like that. And so I know for a fact that it probably had live action going on
Yeah,
when
at
it
least
was
some
made
kind of
for the
lights.
car.
But a lot of that was process.
The other thing you have to
with the
understand
background,
is,
yeah.
I'm sure there was improvements made on 2 and 3
Uh-huh.
for Back to the Future. And just like Knight Rider, every time Glenn Larson had a better idea, they were able to put it into effect on the show, and they made for some transformations in the look of the car over the series arc.
There's a lot of things in Knight Rider that are only close-up inserts that never were existed in the car. An example of that is something that I'm putting into this upper console. That they had this oxygen vent in one scene, and you never actually see where in the car it is. They just show a close-up of it.
It's just a story, man.
It could be
That's
anywhere.
suspense.
I'm
That's
putting
like-
it in the upper console of my.
It's like a switch with a red light that says bomb, and they know that it's danger. That's for conflict. Tell a story.
How impressed are you with the way the fans now are like making these printed circuit boards that interact through a main CPU? I mean, the technology and the dedication of fans making both Knight Rider and Back to the Future parts now.
Well, it
another
goes
level.
back to times I've been fortunate to talk to students in the visual effects community in USC or UCLA, and I ask them about how many CG shots on Jaws, and they start to guess 6, 12, just the shooting stars, everything with the boat, and then everything with the shark, and then I'd say 0, and they'd look at me like I was an idiot, which I'm okay with that. And then I'd say, "No, why didn't we have any CG shots on Jaws?"
Yeah.
And they go, "Because Stephen wanted the water to look real and it full
But there
size."
wasn't
when
any, such a thing.
I said, "Well, we didn't have computers back then." And then they looked at me like, you can see their eyes roll. "What do you mean? How would you do that?" I said, "We had a rotary dial telephone on our workbench in the shop, and we would call production. And we'd say, 'When do you want the yellow barrels on the dock to go out to the set?' And they had a giant marine radio the size of a microwave, and they'd call out, and you hear the conversation. 'Have them at the dock at 3 o'clock. There'll be a boat handler there for them.' We'd throw them in a pickup truck, go out on the dock at 3 o'clock. That was all we had. That and a yellow page phone book in the phone booth at the Dairy Queen, which was the only franchise on the island because they could serve ice cream, and everybody wants ice cream. And that was our internet, a Yellow Pages, 1974. So I'm not surprised that
I was 0.
things move all the way up to where they are now with the sophistication.
And now they have AI where you can speak to the car, it will speak back to you, have a full conversation with
Just
the car.
wait, just wait.
Self-driving.
AI's already there. It's going to take off like crazy, just like the internet, just like TV did, just like radio. It'll be there forever in a different way that we're not going to be used to yet.
It's amazing. I pulled out some of my cars to try to impress you a little. This is my fake Lamborghini Countach made out of a Fiero. But didn't you smash a real one at your shop at Filmtrix?
So here's a story about the crushing Lamborghini Countach. advertising agency came to me and said, we'd like to do a deal where if you don't use the right oil, BP oil, in your car, it'll age prematurely and it will go to ruin. So we think we're going to make an image of a car that's going to crush, just like the car in James Bond and Goldfinger, when they put the car in the crusher and it came out like a cube. And the art director drew a little sketch. So we wanted to end up looking like this. But we don't want to see any machinery from the outside. We want to see the car be able to do it on its own.
So imploding like the submarine.
I said, okay, how do you do that? And we said, first we need a Lamborghini Countach, obviously too expensive. So I flew around the United States and I kept looking at kit cars that were available at the time to find one that was affordable, shippable. And we found one in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. And we got it back in the shop, but it wasn't perfect. The roof line was augmented so that it wasn't perfect copy. And so we had to bring that back because we needed to get the glass that we could use to explode. So we had to re-sculpt the roof line. Then we molded the car and we made copies of it. We had all these pieces and our men used wood and pushed a pre-tempered aluminum sheet into these molds and made all these panels. That when we put together with a cable, we have a test where Dave Wishneck pulls this lever and that piece of aluminum just crinkled up like tinfoil, but it was strong enough to support itself. And we built a frame that tromboned, and we made that telescope on 3 axes, in and down and sideways channeled. And we put that into hydraulic motors on the frame that were remote controlled, and it had a pump, and the oil just went out the outboard into a bucket of a reservoir, just an open plastic bucket. And then we put that drive on the chain to the front wheels remote control. So we had the whole car painted beautifully by Ron Ashford, and we could drive it on the set, and we could stop on the mark, and we could then press the button and the car would telescope on itself and pull all these panels down. We had pyrotechnic drivers on the windows to explode the windows, and all of these were breakaway glass. The windshield was the real windshield. And the car would come together. Then we had a vacuum line that hooked up to it that would suck the air out of the tires to give it more feel like it was exploding. And then when it sat there in a mess, we did a deal where we made this light up. We had L-Champ 500 wheels. We actually drilled out all the rivets all the way around it so that it could make an ovoiding shape to it. Flat tire. The light came on, the car puffed out some smoke, and it limped off the stage, where what we did was we put a cable underneath and made a hole in the shop and went out the wall and hooked it up to our pickup truck, our shop pickup truck,
drug it up.
And radio, go, and drug it off the stage, stop, before it went through the wall. And we shot that commercial. I directed it. We got a Clio nomination for the work. BP Oil. That was 1987, 1988.
Wow. I think I remember the commercial. I mean, I would have been a little kid.
It's called Car Crusher, for obvious reasons. And we made it work. And the end result looked so much like the original sketch the art department gave us. We're really happy with that one. A lot of work, a lot of work. Bob, can't tell you how much I enjoyed our day together. It was a pleasure to see a memory of ours, and you've done a fine job on it, as you continue to do. I wish you good luck with all your sales in the future. And again, like all my fans, if there's anything I can do to help you, just Google my name, look up my email, filmtrix@mac.com. Filmtrix, like the cereal, @mac, like the computer.com. Thank you.
There it is. I'm Videobob, so thanks for watching. This car has the hover conversion. It's real slow.